Oh, that was my best one yet. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Appropriations, Higher Education, and Community College Subcommittee. Perry, would you like to take the attendance?
Excellent, thank you. Chair Steckloff.
Present.
Representative Morgan. Representative Weiss. Representative Price.
Here.
Representative Skaggs.
Here.
Representative Kuhn.
Here.
Representative DeBoer.
Here.
I'm sure you have a quorum.
Thank you. Representative Price approves the minutes from the subcommittee on March 14th, 2024. And we're going to call for a motion to adopt the House Substitute 5504 FY 2024-25 Community Colleges Appropriations. Oh, can we take the roll? Okay, moved by Representative Skaggs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion to adopt the House Substitute for House Bill 5504, Chair Steckloff.
Yes.
Representative Morgan. Representative Weiss.
Yes.
Representative Price.
Yes.
Representative Skaggs.
Yes.
Representative Kuhn. Representative DeBoer.
Yes.
I'm sure you have 5 yeas, 1 nay. The House Substitute is adopted.
Thank you. We're going to bring up Perry Zelak from the House Fiscal Agency to give an overview of the contents of the bill. Before we begin, I just would like to make some opening remarks. This budget was crafted with students first. So this budget, as you can see, is very heavily dedicated to our scholarships. I just want to make that very clear when you're looking through the boilerplate information as well as the dollar amounts. This budget is really prioritizing students. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Perry Zelak from the House Fiscal Agency. And I'll be reading from the House Fiscal Agency summary document for the House Subcommittee Chair's recommendation for House Bill 5504, the fiscal year 2024-25 Community Colleges budget. Before I begin, I'd like to point out that instead of saying House Subcommittee Chair's recommendation, I will be using House or House proposed when talking about changes from the current fiscal year. Starting at the table at the top, you can see the column on the left shows you the current fiscal year enacted appropriations. The next column to its right is the executive recommendation for fiscal year 25, and then finally the House Subcommittee Chair's recommendation for the budget. The House's budget has a proposed gross appropriation of $468.8 million, of which the entire amount is made up of state restricted funding, specifically school aid or SAF funding. This represents a $75.7 million decrease from the current fiscal year, or a 13.9% reduction. Looking at major budget changes from the current fiscal year, item number 1 concerns community college operations. The House includes a net increase of $11.9 million of SAF funding for community college operations, which is a 3.3% increase. This includes the following: $11.8 million of SAF to individual community colleges, which would be distributed through the performance funding formula, which was left unchanged from the current fiscal year. And then a $49,000 SAF increase based on reported North American Indian tuition waiver program costs as reported by community colleges. Attainment of the performance funding increase would be conditioned on restraining in-district tuition and fee increases to either 4.5% or $217, whichever is greater. Projected funding increases for individual community colleges would range anywhere from 2.7% to 4.8%. And total funding for operations would be $369.8 million of school aid funding. Moving on to page 2, items number 2, 3, and 4 all concern the Michigan Public School Employee Retirement System. changes. Item number 2 is specifically on the state share of unfunded actuarial accrued liability, or UAAL payments. The House does concur with the executive's proposal to decrease funding in this line by $43.7 million SAF, or a 41.3% increase. Total funding for community colleges' state share of MIPSers would be $62.1 million. Item number 3 concerns the MIPSers Community College payroll cap reduction. The House does concur with the executive in adding $5.7 million of SAF to lower community colleges' employer contribution cap from its current 20.96% down to 20.0%. Payments would also be distributed similar to the UAAL state share, and total funding for this line would be $5.7 million SAF. And then item number 4 concerns the MIPSers normal cost offset. The House also concurs with the executive's decrease of $1.2 million of SAF for the normal cost offset, or a 5.2% decrease, due to maintaining the assumed rate of return at 6.0%. Total funding for this line would be $21.8 million. Item number 5 concerns the infrastructure, technology, equipment, maintenance, and safety line, or items. While the executive proposes removing all $32.8 million of SAF funding for this line, the House maintains a $100 placeholder for the program. It requires individual community college allocations to be distributed based on a calculated fiscal year equated student enrollment measure for fiscal year 23. And then finally, allocations would not be distributed to individual community colleges until January of 2025. Item number 6 concerns the removal of fiscal year 24, or current fiscal year, one-time appropriations. And the House does concur with the executive's removal of the following programs for critical incident mapping, career and education navigators for adult learners, the Michigan Reconnect Entry Point Program, and the Kalamazoo Valley Community College Workforce Development Grants, for a total removal of $15.5 million of school aid funds. Moving on to boilerplate changes for the House proposal. I will only point out a handful. The bottom of page 2 concerning section 216C for infrastructure, technology, equipment, maintenance, and safety, or items. The executive proposes deleting this boilerplate section and that it deleted the funding. Since the House has a $100 placeholder, it revises the language that removes the capital outlay project authorization as a restriction to receiving items funding. So currently, if a community college has received a capital outlay project, it would not be eligible for funding. The House proposed removing that link so that all community colleges would be eligible to receive items funding. Moving on to page 3, I will point out section 217B concerning community college tuition and fee restraints. Well, the executive proposed revising the tuition and fee restraint language for fiscal year 25 to 5.0% or 241, whichever is greater, and added fiscal year 26 proposed language to 5.0 or $253. The House proposal revises in-district tuition and fee restraints to either 4.5% or $217, whichever is greater. And then finally, on page 4, you can see individual community college appropriations based on the current performance funding formula. So essentially, if you take the boxed column, which is entitled Fiscal Year 24 Base Appropriations, you add the light gray columns for total formula distribution and total fiscal year 25 Indian tuition waiver payments. That should equal the fiscal year 25 total appropriations for each individual community college, which grosses out to $369.8 million, or again, a 3.3% increase. And with that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to take any questions that members may have.
Do we have any questions? Oh, all right, sweet. Okay, I'm going to call for a motion to report House substitute. Oh, I need amendments first. We do have a few amendments before us. The first amendment, Representative Kuhn, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move the amendment that reinserts the funding for item, the infrastructure. I so move.
Okay, thank you. Can we take take the roll? Gosh.
On Amendment 1, offered by Representative Kuhn. Chair Stuckloff.
No.
Representative Morgan. Representative Weiss. Representative Price. Representative Skaggs.
No.
Representative Kuhn. Representative DeBoer.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 2 yeas, 4 nays. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you, Perry. And we do have another amendment from Representative Kuhn. Representative, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this is an amendment to reinsert boilerplate that relates to free speech and expression, and I so move that amendment.
Thank you, Representative Kuhn. Can we take the roll?
On Amendment number 2, offered by Representative Kuhn. Chair Stuckloff.
No.
Representative Morgan. Representative Weiss. Representative Price. Representative Skaggs.
No.
Representative Kuhn. Representative DeBoer.
Yes.
I'm sure you have 2 yeas, 4 nays. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you. Representative Skaggs calls for a motion to report House Substitute HB 5504 from the House Subcommittee. Can we take the roll? Okay. Representative Kuhn, would you like to speak on the bill?
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Chair. After 28 years in local government, I expect government to be open and transparent. That's true everywhere in our state but here in Lansing. The cult of secrecy permeates the legislative process here in our capital. It's a bad process and leads to bad public policy. We need openness and we need transparency in all our legislative processes and particularly in our appropriations process. For that reason, I will be voting no on this bill.
Thank you, Representative Kuhn. Can we take the roll?
Thank you. On the motion to report the House substitute for House Bill 5504 with recommendation, Chair Stuckloff.
Yes.
Representative Morgan. Representative Weiss. Representative Price.
Yes.
Representative Skaggs.
Yes.
Representative Kuhn. Representative DeBoer.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 1 nay, 1 pass. The motion is adopted.
Thank you, Perry. Next up, Representative Weiss calls for a motion to adopt House Substitute HB 5505, the fiscal year 2024-25 higher education appropriations. Can we take the roll?
Thank you. On the motion to adopt the House substitute for House Bill 5505, Chair Stuckloff.
Yes.
Representative Morgan. Representative Weiss. Representative Price.
Yes.
Representative Skaggs. Representative Kuhn. Representative DeBoer.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 1 nay, 1 pass. The motion is adopted.
Thank you, Perry. And next, we're going to be moving to an overview of the contents of the higher education appropriation request.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, I will be reading from the House Fiscal Agency summary for the House Subcommittee Chair's recommendation for House Bill 5505, the fiscal year 2024-25 higher education budget. And starting at the table at the top, I will just jump straight to the House's proposal. The House proposal has a gross appropriation of $2,279.4 million, of which $1,818.5 million is general fund general purpose. This represents a gross decrease of $11.7 million, or 0.5%. However, it represents an increase in general fund by $140.7 million, or an 8.4% increase. Looking at major budget changes from the current fiscal year, The House includes a net increase in item number 1 for university operations of $54.8 million gross, of which $48.8 million is general fund for university operations, which represents a 3.3% increase. This includes the following: $53.7 million gross, or $47.7 million of general fund, for ongoing increase to operation grants for universities, with all universities receiving a 3.3% increase. $1.0 million of general fund increase based on reported North American Indian tuition waiver program costs as reported by individual institutions, and the cost of incorporating Bay Mills Community College back into the Indian tuition waiver program. Moving on to page 2. Continuing with university operations, attainment of the operations increase would be conditioned on restraining resident undergraduate tuition and fee increases to the greater of either 4.5% or $703. Projected funding changes for individual universities would range anywhere from 2.9% to 6.0%. Total funding for operations for universities would be $1.7 billion gross, of which $1.2 billion would be general fund. Item number 2 concerns Michigan State University's Extension and Ag Bio Research programs. The House includes a net increase of $2.4 million of general fund for Ag Bio Research and Extension, which represents a 3.3% increase for both programs. Total funding for both programs would total $74.1 million of general fund. We'll skip to item number 4 concerning the Michigan Achievement Scholarship and the Post-Secondary Scholarship Fund deposits. While the executive proposed a net increase of $30.0 million for deposit into the fund, or a 10% increase, the House proposal includes an increase of $36.0 million general fund into deposit for the Post-Secondary Scholarship Fund, or a 12.0% increase. The Post-Secondary Scholarship Fund is used to fund the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. However, the House does not include the executive's proposal for the community college guarantee. However, it does revise last dollar awards to include the full cost of attendance minus gift aid received by students. After a total deposit of $336.0 million into the Post-Secondary Scholarship Fund, total funding for Michigan Achievement Scholarships for the upcoming fiscal year would be $336.0 million restricted. The next handful of items on page 3 all concerns various scholarship programs offered by the state. Item number 5 concerns the Tuition Incentive Program, otherwise known as TIP. The House does conclude with a number of changes the executive made here, which results in a net increase to the program of $20.0 million gross. Essentially what's happening is $73.8 million of federal TANF, or Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, is being removed and replaced with a corresponding amount of general fund. There's also a $20.0 million increase to the program to address increased program costs and increased program participation for students. Total funding for TIP would be $93.8 million of general fund. Item number 6 concerns the Michigan Competitive Scholarship Program. The House also concurs with changes the executive proposed, which includes a net decrease to the program of $6.9 million gross, however, an increase of $19.9 million of general fund. Also, what's happening here is, again, $23.9 million of federal TANF funding is being removed and being replaced with a corresponding amount of general fund. However, there is the $6.9 million reduction to account for the slow phase-outs of the scholarship program as student awards continue to increase under the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. The Michigan Competitive Scholarship funding for fiscal year 25 would be $19.9 million of general fund. Item number 7 concerns children of veterans and officers survivor tuition grant programs. The House concurs with the increase of $600,000 of general fund for this program, or a 42.9% increase. Total funding for the tuition grant programs would be $2.0 million of general fund. Item number 8 concerns the tuition grant program. While the executive proposed a net decrease of $7.1 million gross, along with the swap between federal TANF funding and general fund. The House maintains current program funding, but does concur with the removal of $30.1 million of federal TANF funding and replacing that with a corresponding amount of general fund. The total funding for tuition grant programs would remain at $42.0 million of general fund. Moving on to page 4, the next item concerns the Michigan Reconnect program. The executive proposed transferring Michigan Reconnect from the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, or LEO, into the higher education budget. The House does not include this change. Item number 10 concerns items for higher education. And again, while the executive proposed removing all $79.0 million of general fund for this program, the House maintains a $100 placeholder for the program, requires individual university allocations to be distributed based on calculated fiscal year 23 FYES enrollment, and then states that individual allocations would not be distributed to universities until January of 2025. And finally, item number 11 concerns the removal of fiscal year 24 one-time appropriations, where the House concurs with the executive's removal of $38.9 million gross, $8.9 million of general fund, to remove the following programs: Michigan State University's Engineering and Digital Innovation Center, Critical Incident Mapping, the Michigan Geological Survey, and Michigan Technological University's Bachelor of Science in Nursing program creation. This results in a total removal of $38.9 million gross. Moving on to the boilerplate changes from the current fiscal year, I will point out that a number of revisions do concern the change in reference namely from the Department of Treasury to the Department of Lifelong Education, Advancement, and Potential, otherwise known as MyLeap. I will point out the following. The bottom of page 4, section 236M, concerning infrastructure, technology, maintenance, and safety, or items. Again, the executive proposed deleting this boilerplate piece since it removed the funding. The House revises language to, again, remove the connection between capital outlay project authorization as a restriction to receiving items funding, and also removes restrictions for the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. Moving on to page 5. The next section, section 241C, concerning university tuition and fee restraint language. While the executive proposed revising resident tuition and fee increases to 5.0% or $781, whichever is greater, for the upcoming fiscal year, and then added fiscal year 26 tuition and fee restraint language to the greater of 5.0% or $820. The House simply revises tuition and fee restraint for fiscal year 25 to 4.5% or $703, whichever is greater. Section 247 concerning the Michigan Reconnect program, that the executive proposed adding associated boilerplate with the program. Since the House did not include funding for Michigan Reconnect, the House does not include its proposed boilerplate language. Section 248 concerns the Michigan Achievement Scholarship program. And while the executive makes a number of changes here, the House mostly concurs with language revisions, again, updating Department of Treasury to the Department of MyLeap. However, and it does not include community college or tribal institution award revisions, which is better known as the Community College Guarantee. However, the House does add a cost of attendance definition and revises last dollar awards to include that cost of attendance, again, minus all gift aid received by the student. It also revises the student aid index level for program eligibility from $30,000 or less to $35,000 or less, and directs the state budget director to reevaluate the status of institutions declared to be ineligible for program funding after one academic year. Moving on to page 6, I would like to highlight section 252 concerning the tuition grant program. While the executive proposed adding language essentially phasing out the scholarship for new high school graduates. The House does not concur with that, but does concur with department reference revisions. And then finally, Section 270 concerning Bay Mills Community College, North American Indian tuition waiver funding. The House does add language that specifies a $498,000 pass-through payment from Lake Superior State University to Bay Mills Community College for the cost of the Indian tuition waiver program. It also requires Bay Mills to comply with reporting information to the Department of MyLeap. And then finally, on page 7, you can see individual university appropriations, where once again, if you take the boxed column for fiscal year 24 base appropriation, add the 2 gray columns for the total ongoing operations increase and the total fiscal year 25 Indian tuition waiver payments, you would equal the total fiscal year 25 appropriation, which again grosses to $1.7 billion, or a 3.3% increase. And after all of that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to take any questions that members may have.
We do have a question from Representative Weiss.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your hard work on both of these budgets. Not to put too fine a point on it, I know we have talked a lot about the tuition grant program, but can you just talk about the reasoning behind maintaining that program and what thought process went into that and why that's important?
Thank you, Representative Weiss. Great question. As I said before, this budget is heavily student-centered. You'll see numerous changes revolving our scholarships within this budget. There is no way we'll ever be able to reach 60 by 30 without including our independent colleges and universities. They graduate about 20% of their students that are implemented into that program, and it's vital that we keep the tuition grant. I think between yesterday and a few weeks ago, our students really showed us how incredible adding in scholarships like this are. They're life-changing. About 7 schools, because of this tuition grant, have actually been able to move to free college for all, or for those students. So that is the reason I kept it, because it is so vital to so many of our students here. Thank you. Do you have any other questions? Representative Price, do you have a question?
Yes, my question is similar, just related to the changes that you made to the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. What kind of impact is that one going to have on students?
Yes, so we have lots of changes to the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. As we've heard, we have moved to a new FAFSA, whatever you want to call it. We now moved from EFC to Student Aid Index. And because of the disastrous rollout, we were kind of playing in a gray area last year, guessing what the appropriate correlation would be. I will say we got it wrong. So we changed that to $35,000 to open that scholarship back up to many, many more students. So this allows a lot more students to be able to qualify for the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. And from the very beginning, I have really hammered down why these dollars should also go to transportation, housing, childcare, food, and that's where the cost of attendance comes into play. As I don't want to go over my whole spiel from yesterday, but as we heard, a lot of our students, in order to qualify for these scholarships, must be full-time. And I'm going to address the elephant in the room with the community college guarantee. With the changes in the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, those students should still be able to get free tuition, and this would actually allow more dollars for them, because this would be refundable just like Pell, to pay for tuition, or to pay for things like transportation. Especially in community colleges, majority of our students are part-time. And in order to get to 60 by 30, it's vital that we get our part-time students to full-time. As you know, you can do the math. There's no way we're going to graduate students within 8 years to meet the 2030. So this is a great opportunity to actually convert our part-time students to our full-time students. We've heard time and time again why so many of our students are going part-time because they need additional job to be able to afford those additional expenses. So that's why these changes were so carefully and meticulously thought out, because we wanted to make sure the most amount of students would qualify for these scholarships. And with the changes in these scholarships, about 75 to 80% of students in the state of Michigan will now qualify for this amazing opportunity. And that's why I made those changes. Do we have any other questions? All right, cool. Okay, so we are going to move on to amendments. Representative Kuhn, you have 2 amendments. Would you like to speak to the first one?
Yes, thank you, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, as with the community colleges, I am moving to reinsert the items funding for infrastructure, maintenance, et cetera. I move that amendment, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Kuhn. Can we take the roll?
Sure. On the amendment offered by Representative Kuhn, Chair Stuckloff.
No?
Representative Morgan. Representative Weiss. Representative Price. Representative Skaggs. Representative Kuhn.
Yes.
Representative DeBoer.
Yes.
I'm sure you have 2 yeas, 4 nays. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you, Perry. Representative Kuhn, would you like to speak to your second amendment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And again, similar to the community colleges, this is reinserting the boilerplate related to free and open expression and speech. I so move that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Kuhn. Can we take the roll?
Sure. On the amendment offered by Representative Kuhn, Chair Stuckloff.
No?
Representative Morgan. Representative Weiss. Representative Price. Representative Skaggs.
Nope.
Representative Kuhn.
Yes.
Representative DeBoer.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 2 yeas, 4 nays. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you, Perry. And before we call a motion, are there any comments? Representative Kuhn?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And for the same reasons as I voted no on the community college budget, I will be voting no on this budget. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Kuhn. And with that, Representative Weiss calls for a motion to report House Substitute HB 5505 as out of the House Subcommittee and refer it to the House Standing Committee on Appropriations. Can we take the roll?
On the motion to report the House substitute for House Bill 5505 with recommendation, Chair Stuckloff.
Yes.
Representative Morgan. Representative Weiss.
Yes.
Representative Price.
Yes.
Representative Skaggs.
Yes.
Representative Kuhn. Representative DeBoer.
Yes.
I'm sure you have 4 yeas, 1 nay, 1 pass. The motion is adopted.
Thank you, Perry. Representative Skaggs calls for a motion to excuse absent members. And without objection, members are excused. Thank you. And we will be adjourning the subcommittee.